What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with a preview for the Travelers Championship. So the week after the US Open, we usually don't get such a great field here, but we've got a couple of big-name first-timers that we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes, so stay tuned for that. This is another par 70 out of Hartford, Connecticut, and a very different course than what we saw at Erin Hills last week. So if you are new to this video series, you know that I have this spreadsheet that I put together every week. It's available on dfsondemand.com. One of the things that I lean on the most, and that's been very successful for me this season, are my key stats. I mentioned in the upcoming weeks, I'm going to try to release something where you're going to be able to choose which key stats are most important to you. But for the meantime, these are the ones that are most important to me. And the reason that I chose them is specific for each week. So let's go through this. Driving accuracy. So TPC River Highlands is not a long course. In fact, it was the shortest course on tour last season. So while bombers inherently usually have an advantage because even on shorter courses, you know, they're hitting wedges in more often, stuff like that, they always have an advantage. It's just not very prevalent here, okay? A lot of different players can win here at the Travelers Championship, and a couple of the stats that correlated most with the winners or with better DraftKings scores were driving accuracy. So that's one of my key stats this week. And then it really does feel like another second shot course. It's probably because it's a par 70, so we've got a couple of extra par 4s, which we'll talk about in a second. So it's a par 70 where, you know, those second shots are going to come in handy quite a bit. So we're going with strokes gained approach. And then I also added in par 4s between 400 and 450 yards. By my count, it looks like there's 8 of them that fall within this range, which is pretty significant. Actually, here, I have the holes here. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 and 1 within probably a couple yards. So a lot of these par 4s are going to be playing within that range, so I thought there would be a good emphasis there. The next two key stats are scrambling and strokes gained putting. This does tend to be a course where the guys who can get up and down and who can putt, no surprise, win quite often, but it seems to be a larger correlator here at the Travelers Championship. And then a new one for this week, I actually pulled recent DraftKings form. So we're at the point in the season where, you know, I don't love using season-long stats. I want to start breaking it down into maybe the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, things like that. This is the last 10 weeks on tour. It also includes the European Tour. Obviously, there's not a lot of guys who have played all 10 weeks. You see a lot of guys with like the last 5 or 6 tournaments that they've played. But that's what this is, and it's DraftKings points per round. Does not include finishing position. It does not include any of the strokes, bonuses, stuff like that, or the streaks bonuses. So that's what we have there. So guys who are playing well are also going to be included here. All right. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into this. And at the top of the player pool is going to be a couple of those guys who are new to the Travelers Championship. Interesting to see Rory's name here, 11,600. Rory went out and missed a ton of fairways at Erin Hills, which is not a good sign here at the Travelers because the Erin Hills fairways were, what, 50, 60 yards wide. They're going to be much more narrow here. But the rough certainly will not be as nearly as penalizing, right? There's no fine fescue. There's no 6-inch rough to deal with. Pretty straightforward here in Cromwell, Connecticut. Probably not going to be too much of an issue if he misses fairways. And I was a little optimistic to see him, you know, shoot a 1-under on Friday, at least put a decent round together before missing the cut. And I wonder how many, you know, jaded owners are there going to be that are going to fade him this week, right? Like, you know, I rostered Rory at 30% last week. He misses the cut, and now I'm not going to play him again. Well, seems to me like that would be a fairly good GPP play. I probably will never touch Rory in cash this week. On the flip side, the guy that I think is probably the cash game staple is the other first-timer here. Jordan Spieth. So, he's your cash game horse. One of the best rounds at the U.S. Open on Sunday with a 69. He has all the stats that you'd expect from him. Number 1 in strokes gained approach in this field. 8th in recent DraftKings form. He destroys those par 4s. You can see here he is. He's my 10th ranked golfer. 8th in that par 4 category that we're looking at. Also 8th in DraftKings points per round. So really hard to overlook the guy. I think it's actually a pretty fair price considering how soft the rest of this field is. Jordan Spieth checks in pretty highly for me. And then the next guy here is Justin Thomas, who I'm really interested in seeing how this is going to play out. If you watched last week, he was ranked very high in my key stats. Goes and drops a top 10. Breaks a record, for the lowest U.S. Open round on Saturday. Just a really good week, but if you owned him, you feel a little disappointed. And it's because he was the favorite to win this thing heading into Sunday, and he didn't pull it off. So now I'm wondering, okay, you have in the same boat of Rory as you have a lot of jaded owners. Thomas was kind of a letdown last week. If you would have told me he'd finish at T9 before the week started, I would have been absolutely thrilled. But the way it happened, right? He goes 69, 63, 75, 3 over, and never really contends on Sunday whatsoever is a little bit disappointing. So I'm going to hold my thoughts on Justin Thomas. I'll probably have a decent bit of him no matter what, but I'm really interested to see the trends of the industry. And if a lot of guys are not going to be on Justin Thomas, I will probably be overweight. I'll probably have a lot more. If he's going to be 20, 25% as we expect, I'll probably have that same share. But I'll be really interested to see what the rest of the industry does with Justin Thomas this week. A couple other really good plays here. I'll try to go quickly. So Brandt Snedeker, $9,400. He goes, T9 at the U.S. Open. He was, what did I read? One of only 3 guys. Oh, it's right here. One of only 3 guys to shoot under par all 4 rounds last week. Obviously really good. Snedeker is the type of guy who he gets scorching hot very, very quickly. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to grab him, before he goes nuts, right? And it feels like we're getting there. It feels like Snedeker, he posts 2 top 10s in his last 4 outings, one of them at the U.S. Open. And, his game fits a lot here, right? Like, his putter can heat up, pretty good on approaches. Let's see if we can find him. Here he is. He's my number 3 ranked golfer. Okay, so kills that par 4 scoring really well in strokes gained putting, really well in recent DK form. So, that's kind of the guy I'm looking for. Oh, and then also, sorry, here he is. Didn't play last year, but has back-to-back top 10s in the last 2 times he's teed it up here. So I think Snedeker will probably be pretty popular, and it's for good reason. I think he actually has a pretty good shot at winning this tournament. All right, Brendan Steele continues to impress. We've talked about him a lot here, but again, I need to reiterate, the way that he plays golf is really good for fantasy scoring, for DraftKings scoring specifically. He had 98.5 DraftKings points last week and finished T13. That was more DraftKings points than Ricky Fowler, Tommy Fleetwood, Brian Harman, and Justin Thomas, who all had top 5s. Justin Thomas was T9 and broke the all-time scoring record in a round for the U.S. Open and scored less fantasy points than Brendan Steele. So the way that he is going to be volatile and go out and just fire a ton of birdies, he's probably going to make a ton of bogeys as well, but that's good scoring. So you just got to kind of hang on and stomach the ebbs and flows with this guy because it's going to be pretty drastic. And then if we look at his recent history, here we go. Here's his last 4 years. No worse than a T25. He's got a couple of, he's got a T13 and a T5 and then another 13th here. So really good history here as well. So it feels like another guy that you're going to have to play a lot of. Brian Harman, I think, fits this course. I think Kyle Stanley is a pretty good play as well. Kevin Tway in this range is a guy we'll get back on. But listen very carefully because I may not ever say this again. I don't think I've said it all year, and I might not say it again for the rest of the year. How about Bubba Watson? Okay? If you've watched this, you know I'm not a big Bubba Watson fan. Like, at all. I don't really like the guy at all. I don't like his game. I have barely rostered him all season long. But I thought we started to see signs at the Memorial. I think he switched back to that white ball. Maybe things were getting going for Bubba. You know, he posted a 73 on Sunday, which was a little disappointing. But I thought we were seeing flashes of really good Bubba. And he goes out and misses the cut at the U.S. Open, but you cannot overlook the type of course history that this guy has. And I'm not a huge course history guy. I'd prefer recent form. But Bubba's a two-time champion. He has the best scoring average of anyone who's played here at least 3 times. You can see, I mean, this is just an absolute clinic. What's that? 5 top 10s? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 top 10s. You know, hasn't missed a cut in his last 9 trips. He's underpriced. We'll talk about more about that in a second, but it's going to be hard to overlook him. All right, getting a little further down, we have the ghosts of past champions here. So Russell Knox and Kevin Streelman, 2 guys who have won this tournament in the past. Russell Knox is your defending champion, who I probably shy away from defending champions a little more than I should, just because, you know, you do all the media. It's a lot of responsibility to go back and try to defend your own title. And Russell Knox has not been playing well, but I think he's too good. Okay, I think he's too good. He's the type of guy who can heat up fairly quickly. I'll have a little bit of exposure to him here. And then Kevin Streelman, I probably like just a little bit more. So Streelman's, since he won, he's missed the last 2 cuts here. But Streelman has much better form coming in than Russell Knox does, and they're both 7,800. So if you have an owner who is trying to pick between Streelman or Knox and just goes with the defending champ, Streelman might be the nice little pivot here. So back-to-back top 18s in the last 2 tournaments that he's played. He's only missed 4 cuts all year long. Let's look at his key stats because I thought he was pretty good there too. He's in my top 40, but the stats that correlate best to this course are the ones that Streelman is better at. So it's the driving accuracy, he's 28th. It's the par 4 scoring in that range, he's 19th. So those are the ones that I'm most worried about. He's not a very good putter. He loses strokes on the greens. But we've seen guys, you know, win a bunch of ways here. So I think he's worth a little bit of a flyer because he's probably playing the best he has. Maybe since he won this tournament, he might be playing the best he's played. Going down a little further, not a lot in the low 7,000s. Oh, Ben On, way underpriced. Way underpriced. Okay, 13 of 14 cuts made. So he only missed his last cut at the U.S. Open. So before that, he made 13 in a row. This is a dude who makes a ton of birdies. I'll show you that chart in a second, but before I move away, 4 straight top 25s coming into the U.S. Open, 2 top 8s in that span. You can see he's made cuts all year long. This is a really weak field. And then Ben On, here we go. Makes a ton of birdies. 73 birdies in the last 10 weeks on tour. Not a lot of guys have made more. A couple here. And then a couple guys who have played more tournaments. But Ben On, he goes low, and that's the type of thing that we're looking for in DraftKings scoring. And then finally, you might have already noticed this. Chez Reavie is my #1 ranked golfer. And I had to do a little bit of a double take here. I had to make sure my numbers were right. But Chez Reavie is my #1 golfer. And I don't think it's as crazy if you've been following this video series for the last couple weeks. And we've been on Chez. We were all over him at the FedEx. We were all over him. I had a ton of him in lineups. I talked about him. He was ranked, I think he was my 4th ranked golfer. he goes out and shoots, finishes T4. He was again ranked highly. I think he was ranked inside my top 15 or top 20 last week at the U.S. Open, and he goes out and finishes T16. He's playing really well. He was 7 under on Friday, just absolutely heating it up. And then he shows up here, and here we go. Shows up here, and he's number 3 in driving accuracy, number 20 in strokes gained approach, number 7 in those par 4s, number 20 in scrambling, number 31 in strokes gained putting, and number 34 in recent DK form. So no worse than 34th in any of these key stat categories. That's pretty rare. Now, I will say this. For my highest ranked golfer to have a score of 86, that's pretty low. Usually we see 92, 93. I think like one time DJ was like 98 or 97, something like that. But for my highest ranked golfer to score at 86th is pretty rare. I think that says that this is a wide open field. I think it says that really anyone can win this thing. It's a fairly weak field, but we have a couple of big names at the top. So I like Reavie. I guess I'm gonna have to have a lot of him. He's been playing well. He's returned a lot of money for me. He's returned a lot of good performances for me. So I think we're gonna have to go back to him. And then, like we usually do, we'll wrap up with the odds here, and we'll talk about this. So if you're new, we've got the Vegas odds to win, and we've got the salaries here. And in theory, these two should correlate. The better chance you have of winning the golf tournament, the higher salary you should have. You see that a lot with Fantasy Draft. Fantasy Draft is a very, I don't want to call it optimal. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it's a fairly tight pricing where basically there's not a lot of, it's a very efficient pricing, sorry. So there's not a lot of inefficiencies here. You don't see that on DraftKings. There are some guys. So we talked about Bubba. Bubba's 35 to win, and he's 8,400. Daniel Berger's also 35 to 1 to win, and he's $700 more. Charlie Hoffman getting a really good price compared to Brendan Steele. He played well last week at the U.S. Open. He's only 7,300. This group of guys right here probably underpriced. Lucas Glover pops up a lot when we do this par 4 stuff, but he looks like he's underpriced. He has the same odds as Daniel Summerhays or Jamie Lovemark to win this, and he's $1,000 or $1,500 cheaper. So there are a couple of gems here, guys that pop out at me, and those are just a few. Ben On's on that list as well, so he gets another little boost for me too. So there you go. A couple of guys that stand out in terms of value. I hope that helps. If you have any questions or comments, tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand, or leave a comment below. Talk to you guys soon, and good luck.